Dr. Hyun-woo Kim pressed his face against the observation window of the research shuttle. Below him stretched the green canopy of Verdania, a world that had never known human footsteps until today. The trees looked normal enough from this height, but he knew that down there, creatures unlike anything on Earth waited in the shadows. "First landing in 10 minutes," called Captain Dong-Hyun Lee from the pilot seat. His voice carried the calm confidence that had kept their crew alive through 7 first contact missions. Remember, we observe only. No direct interaction with large predators. Hyun-woo nodded and checked his recording equipment one more time. As the team's xenobiologist, his job was to study how alien life forms behaved around humans. It was important, work that helped future colonists understand what they might face on new worlds. Dr. So-Young Park sat across from him, reviewing the scanner data on her tablet. "The atmospheric readings look good," she said. "Oxygen levels are perfect for us. Temperature is mild. This could be a good world for human settlement." The shuttle touched down in a clearing surrounded by massive trees that reached toward the sky like green towers. Hyun-woo gathered his equipment and followed the team out onto solid ground. The air smelled fresh and clean, with hints of flowers and earth. "Stay close together," warned Woo Jin-han, their security chief. He kept his weapon ready but not raised. They had learned that showing fear or aggression often made first contact situations worse. They had been walking for only 20 minutes when Hyun-woo saw his first Verdanian predator. The shadow stalker emerged from behind a tree trunk as thick as a house. The creature stood 8 feet tall on 4 powerful legs. Its body was covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb light. 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows studied the human team with sharp intelligence. Hyun-woo held his breath and activated his recording device. This was the moment that mattered. How would this apex predator react to seeing humans for the first time? Shadowstalker's behavior was not what anyone expected. Instead of charging or fleeing, the massive creature stopped moving completely. Its 6 eyes focused on Hyun-woo's face. For several long seconds, predator and human stared at each other. Then something strange happened. The Shadowstalker lowered, its head slightly, almost like a bow. It took 3 slow steps backward, never taking its eyes off the humans. Then it turned and disappeared into the forest with surprising grace for such a large animal. "Did you see that?" whispered So-Young. "It looked at us like it knew us." "That was weird," agreed Woo Jin. "Most big predators either attack or run, away fast. They don't usually bow." Hyun-woo reviewed the footage on his device. The Shadowstalker's behavior was clearly recorded. The way it looked at them, the careful backward steps, the almost respectful retreat. It was unlike anything he had seen in his years of studying alien life. 2 hours later, they encountered a razor hawk. The flying predator swooped down from the canopy with wings that cut through the air like knives. Its beak could probably pierce metal armor, but when it saw the human team, the same thing happened. The razor hawk hovered in the air for a moment, studying their faces. Then it let out a soft cry that sounded almost like recognition and flew away without attacking. "This is getting strange," muttered Captain Lee. 2 different species, same behavior. The pattern continued throughout their 3-day survey. Every apex predator they encountered showed the same reaction. They would see the humans, focus on their faces, and then retreat with what looked like respect. Some of the smaller predators even seemed to bow before leaving. Back on their ship, the horizon's edge, Hyun-woo spent hours reviewing the recorded footage. So-young joined him in the lab, bringing coffee and concerned questions. "I've been thinking about this all night," she said. "What if this isn't the first time these predators have seen humans?" "That's impossible," Hyun-woo replied. "We're the first human ship to reach this system. The records are clear." "Then how do you explain their behavior?" Hyun-woo had no answer. He pulled up files from their previous missions to other worlds. As he watched the footage, a cold feeling grew in his stomach. On the desert world of Aridus, the crystal scorpions had shown the same respectful retreat. On the ice planet Glacialis, the frost bears had lowered their heads before backing away. "So-young," he called out, "look at this." She leaned over his shoulder as he played footage from 7 different worlds. On every planet, the same pattern appeared. Apex predators would see humans, study their faces, and then retreat with what looked like recognition. "That's not possible," So-young whispered. 7 different worlds, dozens of different species. They can't all have the same reaction by chance. The ship's AI, Arya, chimed in with her calm mechanical voice. "Dr. Kim, the statistical probability of this behavior pattern occurring randomly across multiple unconnected species is less than 0.001%. "What does that mean?" asked Captain Lee, who had been listening from the doorway. "It means something is connecting these species," Hyun-woo said slowly. "Something they all recognize about humans." Ji-hoon Nam, their linguist, entered the lab, carrying a tablet full of data. "I've been studying the primitive art we found on Aridus and Glacialis," he said. "I think you need to see this." He showed them images of cave paintings and stone carvings from both worlds. Despite being created by completely different civilizations thousands of years apart, they showed remarkably similar scenes. Bipedal figures, with forward-facing eyes, stood over fallen creatures that looked like the apex predators of each world. "These images are old," Ji-hoon explained. "Really old. Some of them might be 50,000 years old or more. "But humans weren't in space 50,000 years ago," So-young protested. "We were barely using stone tools back then." "I know," Ji-hoon said quietly. "That's what makes this so strange." Hyun-woo stared at the ancient images. The bipedal figures looked human, but something about them seemed different, more dangerous. Their eyes held a quality that made him uncomfortable, even in these primitive drawings. "Area," he called out. "Cross-reference these images with our behavioral data. Look for any connections." "Processing," the AI replied. "Analysis complete. The bipedal figures in these ancient images consistently show anatomical features matching human physiology. More significantly, they are always depicted in dominant positions over local apex predators." Captain Lee frowned. "What are you suggesting? That humans visited these worlds thousands of years ago?" "The evidence suggests that possibility," Arya responded. "However, this contradicts all known human historical records." Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at the footage of the Shadow Stalker again, focusing on the moment when the creature's eyes met his. There had been something in that gaze. Not fear, not curiosity, but recognition. The kind of recognition that came from deep genetic memory. "We need to report this to command," Captain Lee said. "This is bigger than just animal behavior." As Hyun-woo prepared his report, he couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled onto something important. Something that would change how humans understood their place in the galaxy. The apex predators of 17 different worlds couldn't. all be wrong about what they saw in human eyes, but what exactly did they see? And why did it make them bow? 3 weeks after their report to command, the Horizon's Edge received new orders. They were to investigate Xerion Prime, a world covered in crystal formations and underground cave systems. The planet's surface sparkled like a giant jewel under its twin suns. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim suited up for another expedition, but this time they had a new team member. Dr. Yoonji Song was an evolutionary psychologist who specialized in understanding how different species develop their behaviors over millions of years. Command had sent her specifically to study the strange predator reactions they had discovered. "The patterns you've documented are fascinating," Yoonji told Hyunwoo as they prepared their equipment. "In my 20 years of study, I've never seen anything like this. Predators from completely different evolutionary trees showing identical responses to the same stimulus. And that stimulus is us," added Dr. So-young Park grimly. "Something about humans triggers a response that's programmed deep in their genetic memory." The team descended into the crystal caves of Xerion Prime through a natural opening that gleamed with reflected light. Their helmet lamps sent rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. The caves were beautiful, but felt alien in a way that made everyone nervous. Engineer Taemin Choi monitored their equipment as they went deeper. "The crystal formations here are unlike anything we've seen," he reported. "They seem to conduct energy in ways that don't match our understanding of physics." They had been exploring for 2 hours when they found the first signs of the Vorthak. Scratch marks in the crystal walls showed where massive claws had carved through solid rock like it was soft clay. The marks formed patterns that looked almost like writing. "These aren't random," observed Ji-hoon Nam, their linguist. He ran his gloved fingers along the carved lines. "There's structure here. Intelligence." The Vorthak found them before they found it. The creature emerged from a side tunnel like a living mountain of crystal and shadow. It stood 12 feet tall on 8 legs that ended in razor-sharp points. Its body was covered in what looked like living gemstones that pulsed with inner light. Multiple eyes arranged around its head studied the human team with alien intelligence. This was clearly the apex predator of Xerion Prime. Nothing else could have carved those marks in solid crystal. Security Chief Woo Jin Han reached for his weapon, but Captain Dong Hyun Lee held up a hand to stop him. "Wait," the captain whispered. "Let's see what it does." The Vorthak moved closer with surprising grace for such a large creature. Its crystalline body made musical sounds as it walked, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The team stood perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. The creature stopped 3 feet away from Hyunwoo and lowered its massive head. For a moment, the same pattern played out that they had seen on so many other worlds. Recognition, respect, retreat. But then something different happened. The largest of the Vorthak's eyes began to glow brighter. The crystal formations around them responded, filling the cavern with soft light. The creature extended one of its front legs toward Hyunwoo, moving slowly and carefully. "Don't move," Yoonji whispered. "I think it's trying to communicate." The crystalline claw touched Hyunwoo's helmet with surprising gentleness. The moment contact was made, his vision exploded with images and sensations that weren't his own. He saw space, not the empty darkness humans knew, but space filled with life and purpose. Ships that moved between stars like living things. Worlds covered in cities that reached toward the sky with impossible architecture, and he saw them. The hunters. They looked human, but not quite. Taller, stronger, with eyes that held depths of intelligence and predatory focus that made Hyunwoo's stomach clench with instinctive fear. They moved through the galaxy like apex predators in the ultimate hunting ground, but they weren't destroyers. They were protectors. The vision shifted, showing him genetic memories that went back millions of years. These ancient humans had visited thousands of worlds, not as conquerors, but as guardians. They fought against things that threatened life itself, dark entities that consumed entire star systems and left nothing but empty void behind. On each world they protected, they left something behind. Not just their protection, but genetic markers in the apex predators. Memories passed down through countless generations that would recognize their children when they returned to the stars. The vision faded, leaving Hyunwoo gasping inside his helmet. The Vorthak stepped back and made a sound that seemed almost like approval before disappearing into the crystal maze of tunnels. "What happened?" So Young asked urgently. "You were motionless for almost 10 minutes. Hyunwoo tried to explain what he had seen, but the words felt inadequate. Ancient humans spreading across the galaxy, genetic memories, apex predators that remembered. Back on the ship, Taemin ran detailed scans on the DNA samples they had collected from various worlds. His findings supported Hyunwoo's vision in ways that made everyone uncomfortable. "Look at this," Taemin said, displaying genetic sequences on the main screen. "Every apex predator species we've encountered has identical markers in their DNA. Not similar. Identical. That's impossible unless they all encountered the same genetic influence." "What kind of influence?" asked Captain Lee. "The kind that comes from direct contact with another species," Taemin replied. "Specifically, contact with humans." Dr. Yoonji studied the data with growing excitement. "This explains everything. The behavioral patterns, the recognition, the respect. These creatures aren't seeing us for the first time. They're seeing the return of something their ancestors knew." "But that still doesn't explain how humans were spreading across the galaxy 50,000 years ago," So Young protested. Taemin pulled up another screen showing human genetic data. "Actually, it does. Look at what I found in our own DNA. The human genetic sequence appeared on screen, but certain sections were highlighted in red. These are called junk sequences," Taemin explained. "Geneticists have always assumed they were leftover DNA from our evolutionary past that no longer serves any purpose." "What if they're not junk?" Yoonji asked quietly. "Exactly. What if they're dormant? What if environmental factors on Earth have been suppressing these genes for thousands of years, but they're starting to wake up?" Hyunwoo felt a chill as he remembered the vision. The ancient humans with their predatory focus and impossible capabilities. "Wake up into what?" "Into what we used to be," Taemin said. "The genetic markers show enhanced physical capabilities, improved reflexes, advanced pattern recognition, and something else. Something that allows for direct mental contact with other species." Like what happened with the Vorthak, Hyunwoo realized. "The apex predators aren't just recognizing us," Yoonji said slowly. "They're recognizing what we're becoming again." Captain Lee studied the genetic data with a frown. "I need to report this to command immediately. If humans are changing, if we're developing abilities we didn't know we had, the military needs to know." As the captain left to send his coded transmission, the rest of the team sat in uncomfortable silence. The implications were staggering. Humans weren't just another species that had developed space travel. They were the descendants of something far more significant. "The question now," So Young said quietly, "is why our ancestors left those genetic markers. Why did they want the apex predators to remember them? Hyunwoo touched his helmet where the Vorthak had made contact. In the depths of the vision, he had sensed something else, a warning. The ancient humans hadn't just been protectors. They had been preparing for something that was coming back. The genetic memories were awakening in both humans and the creatures they protected. After 50,000 years of dormancy, the galaxy was remembering what it meant to have apex predators watching over it, but the vision had also shown him why that protection was needed. In the deepest parts of space, in the darkness between stars, things moved that shouldn't exist. Things that the ancient humans had fought before, and, now it seemed, they would have to fight them again. The volcanic world of Pyrothea was nothing like the green forests of Verdania or the crystal caves of Xerion Prime. Rivers of lava flowed across the surface like glowing veins, and the air shimmered with heat that could kill an unprotected human in minutes. Steam erupted from cracks in the ground, carrying the smell of sulfur and molten rock. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim adjusted his environmental suit and checked the temperature readings on his display. Even with full protection, stepping onto Pyrothea felt like walking into a furnace. The research team moved carefully across the hardened lava fields toward their temporary base camp. "I still don't understand why Command wanted us to study this place," complained Dr. So-Young Park through the comm system. "Nothing should be able to live in these conditions." "The orbital scans showed life signs," replied Dr. Yoon-ji Song. "Something big is living down here. And after what we learned on Xerion Prime, Command wants to know what apex predators on this world might remember about ancient humans." Their new team member, Dr. Bo-Ram Yoon, was a combat specialist who had joined them after their last report to Command. She moved with the careful precision of someone trained to fight, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. "The life signs we detected were massive," she said. "Whatever lives here, it's adapted to survive in conditions that would kill most creatures instantly." The base camp was a cluster of heat-resistant shelters positioned near a dormant volcanic vent. The team spent their first day setting up equipment and scanning the surrounding area. The readings were confusing. The life forms appeared to be made of pure energy rather than normal matter. "That's impossible," muttered engineer Taemin Choi as he studied the scanner data. "Nothing can be made of pure energy and still be alive. On this world, impossible seems to be normal," observed Security Chief Woo Jin Han. He was nervous, which made everyone else nervous. Woo Jin had survived 7 first contact missions by trusting his instincts, and right now his instincts were screaming danger. They saw their first flame serpent on the second day. The creature emerged from a lava flow like a ribbon of living fire. It was 30 feet long and moved through the molten rock as easily as a fish swims through water. Its body pulsed with internal light that shifted between yellow, orange, and white-hot. When it rose above the surface, the air around it caught fire. "My God," whispered Captain Dong-hyun Lee. "It's beautiful." The flame serpent noticed them immediately. But instead of the respectful retreat they had seen on other worlds, this creature showed no recognition at all. It studied them with alien intelligence, and then something changed in its burning eyes. "Challenge. Everyone back to base camp," ordered Bo-Ram, her hand moving to her weapon. "Now." The flame serpent followed them, not with the patient hunting behavior of a normal predator, but with the aggressive pursuit of a creature that saw them as rivals. It stayed just outside the range of their heat shields, circling the camp like a burning comet. "It doesn't recognize us," realized Yoon-ji. The genetic memory isn't there. How is that possible? Asked So Young. Every other apex predator has shown the same response. Taemin checked his genetic scanners and found the answer. These creatures evolved after the ancient human exodus. They don't carry the genetic markers that other species have. To them, we're just another species in their territory. The attack came at sunset. The flame serpent struck the base camp with the fury of a solar flare. Heat shields overloaded and failed. Emergency alarms screamed as temperatures soared beyond survivable levels. The creature's body wrapped around, their main shelter, turning metal into dripping slag. "Weapons are useless!" shouted Wu Jin as his energy rifle passed harmlessly through the creature's burning form. "How do you fight something made of fire?" That's when Hyun Woo felt it. Something deep inside him stirred, a warmth that had nothing to do with the external heat. His vision sharpened until he could see individual flames dancing within the serpent's body. His muscles tensed with strength he didn't know he possessed. The dormant genes were activating. Hyun Woo moved without thinking. He stripped off his environmental suit and stepped directly into the inferno surrounding the camp. The heat should have killed him instantly, but instead it felt like coming home. His eyes reflected the flames as he faced the flame serpent directly. The creature paused in its attack, confused by this small being that showed no fear of temperatures that could melt steel. Hyunwoo reached out with senses he didn't understand, and touched the serpent's burning mind. What he found there was pure aggression and territorial instinct. This creature had never learned to recognize the apex predator of the galaxy, so he taught it. The lesson came not through words, but through genetic memory transmitted directly from human to serpent. Images of the ancient hunters who had protected the galaxy. Memories of power that could challenge stars themselves. The knowledge of what humans really were when they stopped hiding from their true nature. The flame serpent's burning eyes widened with sudden understanding. It unwrapped itself from the destroyed shelter and lowered its blazing head in the universal gesture of recognition they had seen on so many other worlds. "Hyun-woo." So Young's voice seemed to come from very far away. "How are you still alive?" He looked down at himself and was surprised to see that his exposed skin showed no burns. The fire had touched him but caused no damage. Around the camp, his teammates stared at him with expressions of shock and something that might have been fear. "The genes are activating in all of us," said Dr. Aira Shin, their medical officer. She ran her scanners over the team and displayed the results on her tablet. Enhanced bone density, improved neural pathways, resistance to environmental extremes. "We're changing." Over the following days, the changes became more obvious. Wu Jin noticed his reflexes improving far beyond normal human capability. He could track multiple moving targets simultaneously and react to threats before his conscious mind even registered them. Bo Ram discovered that her combat training was evolving into something more instinctive and deadly. She moved with the fluid grace of a natural predator, and her tactical awareness expanded to cover threats she couldn't even see. Taemin found that his understanding of technology was advancing rapidly. He could interface with their equipment in ways that shouldn't be possible, as if the machines were responding to his thoughts rather than his commands. "We're becoming what we used to be," Yoonji observed as she documented the changes. "The environmental pressures of space travel and alien contact are triggering the dormant genes our ancestors left in our DNA. But it was the psychological changes that were most disturbing." Hyun-woo found himself thinking differently. His mind processed information faster and more efficiently. He could predict the behavior of alien creatures with uncanny accuracy. Most unsettling of all, he sometimes caught himself looking at his teammates with the calculating gaze of a predator evaluating potential threats. On their last night on Pyrothea, they were visited by dozens of flame serpents. The creatures emerged from lava flows all around the camp, but they came in peace. They formed a circle around the humans and performed what could only be described as a ceremony of recognition. "They're acknowledging us," Boram said quietly, "accepting us as the apex predators of this territory." More than that, Hyun-woo realized. They're showing submission, just like the other species we've encountered. The ceremony continued through the night, with the flame serpents weaving patterns of fire in the air that seemed to tell a story. A story of the time when the galaxy's greatest hunters walked among the stars, protecting life itself from threats that came from the darkness between worlds. As dawn broke over Pyrothea's volcanic landscape, the flame serpents departed with gestures that clearly meant respect and recognition. The team packed their equipment in thoughtful silence. "Command needs to know about the genetic activation," Captain Lee said as they prepared to leave. "We're not the same species that left Earth." "The question is," So-young said quietly, "are we becoming something better or something more dangerous?" Hyun-woo watched the flame serpent swimming through distant lava flows and felt the predator instinct stirring in his mind. The ancient genes carried more than just enhanced abilities. They carried the memories and experiences of a species that had once ruled the galaxy through sheer predatory dominance. On Earth, environmental factors had suppressed those genes for thousands of years, allowing humans to develop civilization and technology. But now, exposed to the challenges of space and alien contact, the ancient programming was reasserting itself. They were becoming apex predators again. The question that worried him was simple. Apex predators of what? As the shuttle lifted off, from Pyrothea's surface, Hyun-woo caught his reflection in the window. For just a moment, his eyes held depths that seemed to echo with the memories of ancient hunters who had stalked between the stars. The galaxy's apex predators were awakening, and somewhere in the darkness of space, something else was stirring in response. The Galactic Coalition archives stretched across 3 massive space stations orbiting the diplomatic world of Concordia. Millions of years of recorded history from hundreds of different species filled databanks that could store the knowledge of entire civilizations. It was here that archivist Minho Ryu spent his days cataloging the past. Minho had worked in the archives for 15 years, but he had never seen classified files marked with security levels this high. The request had come directly from Coalition High Command, asking him to search for any historical records related to something called the Silence Event. He started his search in the oldest sections of the database, going back 50,000 years to the time when galactic civilization was just beginning to develop faster than light travel. What he found in those ancient records made his hands shake as he typed. The Silence Event was not a natural disaster. It was a war. According to the scattered records he could find, 50,000 years ago, the galaxy had been home to an advanced species that called themselves the Protectors. They had technology that seemed almost magical, ships that could travel between dimensions, and the ability to interface directly with the quantum structure of reality itself. But the Protectors had not been alone in the galaxy. Something had been hunting them. The records called these entities Devourers, and even reading about them made Minho feel cold. They were described as creatures of pure hunger that existed partially outside normal space and time. They consumed entire star systems, not just destroying planets, but actually unmaking them, erasing them from existence so completely that they left no trace behind. The war between the Protectors and the Devourers had lasted for thousands of years. Battle sites were scattered across the galaxy, though most showed no signs of what had happened there. The Devourers had a weapon that didn't just kill, it removed things from reality itself. Minho found records of the final battle, fought in a star system that no longer existed. The Protectors had made a desperate choice. Rather than face complete extinction, they had scattered themselves across the galaxy, seeding primitive worlds with their genetic material and going into hiding among less advanced species. The plan was called the Long Sleep. The Protectors would hide their true nature for thousands of years, allowing their descendants to develop on different worlds. When the Devourers returned, as the record suggested they eventually would, the scattered Protectors would awaken and fight again. But there was something else in the records that made Minho's blood run cold. The descriptions of the Protectors matched the ancient artwork that research teams had been finding on multiple worlds, bipedal figures with forward-facing eyes and the bearing of natural predators. The Protectors looked exactly like humans. 3 days after Minho's discovery, Captain Seo Jun Kwan of the Coalition Defense Fleet received an emergency transmission while patrolling the Outer Rim territories. The message was encrypted with codes that hadn't been used in decades. Long-range sensors have detected movement in the void sector, the transmission reported. Multiple signatures moving between star systems. Pattern matches archived data from the Silence event. All available ships are ordered to investigate immediately. Seo Jun had read the historical files. Every coalition officer above a certain rank had been briefed on the theoretical possibility that the Devourers might return. But it had always seemed like ancient history, a ghost story used to scare new recruits. Now the ghosts were real. His ship, the Defender, was joined by a fleet of 12 other coalition vessels as they approached, the last known position of the mysterious signatures. What they found defied explanation. The Kepler system had been home to 4 inhabited worlds and over 2 billion sentient beings. Now it was empty. Not destroyed, not even damaged. Simply empty. The planets were still there, still orbiting their star. But they showed no signs that life had ever existed on them. "Sir," reported his sensor officer with a voice that shook with disbelief. "The planets show no traces of cities, no atmosphere modification, no signs of industrial development. It's like the civilizations were never there." "That's impossible," Seo Jun replied. "We have records of trade with these worlds. I've been here myself." But the scanner readings didn't lie. The worlds below them were pristine, untouched, as if billions of years of evolution had never happened. It was as if reality itself had been rewritten to erase any trace of the life that had once flourished there. "Captain," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a distress signal from the Proxima system. Something about impossible beings that exist between dimensions." Seo Jun ordered the fleet to Proxima at maximum speed, but they arrived too late. The same emptiness greeted them. 3 worlds that had once hosted thriving colonies now showed no signs that intelligent life had ever existed. The pattern repeated across 7 star systems. Each time, the coalition fleet arrived to find planets that had been somehow cleansed of all traces of advanced life, not destroyed but edited out of existence. Dr. Eugene Bay, the fleet's chief scientist, studied the scanner data with growing horror. "Whatever is doing this has technology that operates on a fundamental level of reality," she reported. "They're not just killing civilizations. They're retroactively preventing them from having existed in the first place." The first direct contact with a devourer happened in the Titan system. The entity appeared without warning, emerging from what the instruments could only describe as a fold in space itself. It looked like a humanoid figure made of absolute darkness, but darkness that moved wrong, that hurt to look at directly. Reality seemed to bend around it, creating distortions that made the crew's eyes water. "All weapons, fire!" ordered Seo-jun. The Coalition's most advanced weapons passed through the devourer without effect. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, even quantum torpedoes simply ceased to exist when they touched the entity's form. The devourer raised one arm toward the Coalition fleet, and 3 ships simply vanished. Not destroyed, not vaporized. They disappeared, so completely that the surviving crew members couldn't remember their names or how many people had been aboard them. "Retreat!" Seo-jun ordered. "All ships, emergency jump!" Most of the fleet escaped, but the devourer followed them. It moved through space in ways that ignored the laws of physics, appearing and disappearing at will. More ships vanished, erased from existence, along with any memory of their crews. Back at Coalition headquarters, Dr. Yu-jin presented her findings to the Emergency Council. "We're not fighting a normal enemy," she explained. "The devourers exist partially outside our dimensional framework. Our weapons can't touch them because they're not entirely here." "Then how do we fight them?" demanded Admiral Chen, the head of Coalition Defense. "According to the ancient records, only one species was ever able to effectively combat the devourers," Yu-jin replied. "The Protectors. And based on the genetic analysis we've received from research teams, the Protectors were the ancestors of modern humans." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, the youngest member of the galactic community, might be the only species capable of defending against an existential threat to all life. The research teams have reported genetic activation in humans exposed to space environments, Yu-jin continued. Enhanced abilities, improved reflexes, and most importantly, the capacity to perceive and interact with entities that exist between dimensions. "You're saying humans are evolving into living weapons," said Counselor Vex, a representative from the insectoid therian species. "I'm saying humans are remembering what they used to be," Yu-jin corrected. "The scattered survivors of the species that once protected the galaxy from threats like this." Admiral Chen leaned forward in his chair. "How long do we have?" "Based on the rate of advance through the outer rim systems, the devourers will reach core Coalition territory within 6 months, Yu-jin replied. "Unless something stops them." The council voted unanimously to recall all human research teams and begin emergency genetic activation protocols. If humanity was going to awaken its ancient predator nature, they needed to do it quickly. On the research ship Horizon's Edge, Dr. Hyun-woo Kim received the coded transmission with a mixture of excitement and dread. The genetic changes he and his team had experienced were accelerating, triggered by the knowledge that they were needed. "So it's true," said Dr. Yoon-ji Song, as she read the classified files they had been sent. "We're the descendants of the galaxy's protectors, and the galaxy needs protecting again," added Captain Dong-hyun Lee grimly. Hyun-woo felt the predator instincts stirring stronger than ever. Somewhere in the depths of space, ancient enemies were moving toward everything he cared about. The human race had spent 50,000 years hiding from their true nature, developing technology and civilization instead of relying on their predatory abilities. But now the time for hiding was over. The apex predators of the galaxy were awakening, and they had work to do. The war that had ended 50,000 years ago was about to begin again, and this time, the humans would be ready. The first devourer reached human space on a Tuesday. Dr. Hyun-Woo Kim felt it before any sensors detected the entity's arrival. A cold touch in the back of his mind, like ice water flowing through his thoughts. Around him, on the bridge of the horizon's edge, the other awakened humans showed similar reactions. They all turned toward the same point in space, their enhanced senses picking up something that shouldn't exist. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 5, reported the ship's AI, Area. "Entity matches archived descriptions of Devourer-class threats." Through the observation windows, they could see it. A humanoid shadow that hurt to look at directly, moving through the vacuum of space as if it were walking on solid ground. Reality bent around it like heat waves, and stars seemed to dim in its presence. Captain Dong-hyun Lee opened communications to the coalition fleet that had assembled near Earth. 47 ships from a dozen different species, all armed with the most advanced weapons the galaxy could produce. It should have been enough to stop any threat, but Hyun-Woo knew it wouldn't be enough. The ancient memories stirring in his mind told him that conventional weapons were useless against entities that existed partially outside normal reality. "All ships, engage the target," ordered Admiral Chen from the flagship. The space around the Devourer lit up with weapons fire. Energy beams, kinetic projectiles, and quantum torpedoes created a light show that could be seen from Earth's surface. The barrage continued for 3 minutes, pouring enough destructive force to level a mountain range onto the target. When the light faded, the Devourer was unchanged. "Impossible," whispered Captain Lee. "Nothing could survive that much firepower." The Devourer raised one arm toward the coalition fleet. The lead ship, a massive battle cruiser with a crew of 3,000, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not even damaged. It vanished so completely that the other ship's computers couldn't remember it had ever been there. 2 more ships followed, then 5. The Devourer was erasing them from reality itself, and there was nothing the coalition forces could do to stop it. "All ships, retreat," Admiral Chen ordered, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Fall back to Earth defensive perimeter." But Hyun-Woo knew retreat wouldn't help. The Devourer had come to Earth for a reason. It could sense what was awakening here, and it would not stop until every human was erased from existence. "We have to fight it," he said quietly. Dr. Yoonji Song looked at him with worried eyes. "How? You saw what happened to the fleet. Our weapons can't even touch it." "Not our weapons," Hyun-Woo replied. "Us." The genetic activation had been accelerating. For weeks, every human who had been exposed to deep space environments was changing, becoming something more than they had been. Enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, and most importantly, the ability to perceive and interact with entities that existed between dimensions. Dr. Bo-Ram Yoon was already suiting up for combat. The dormant warrior genes in her DNA had awakened fully, turning her into something that moved with the fluid grace of a born predator. "The shuttle is ready," she reported. "But are we really going to try to fight that thing in space?" "We don't have a choice," said Security Chief Woo Jin Han. His enhanced reflexes had evolved to the point where he could track dozens of moving objects simultaneously while predicting their behavior several seconds in advance. The Coalition fleet is falling back. If we don't stop it here, it reaches Earth. They launched from the horizon's edge in a modified shuttle designed for close-quarters combat. As they approached the Devourer, Hyun-woo felt the ancient predator instincts rising. In his mind, this was what humans had been designed for, not to build cities or create art, but to hunt things that threatened the existence of life itself. The Devourer noticed their approach and turned its attention toward them. Up close, it was even more disturbing. Its form seemed to shift and flow, never quite settling into a stable shape. Looking at it directly caused physical pain, as if the human brain wasn't designed to process something that existed partially outside reality, but the awakened humans could see it clearly. Their enhanced perception allowed them to track the entity's movements and identify the tiny points of stolen life energy that anchored it to normal space. There, Boram pointed to a spot near the entity's center where reality seemed especially distorted. It's vulnerable there. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The awakened humans moved through space with impossible grace, their enhanced abilities allowing them to survive in vacuum for short periods without life support. They attacked the Devourer with weapons that weren't made of metal or energy, but of pure will and genetic memory. Hyun-woo found himself fighting with instincts that belonged to his ancient ancestors. He could perceive the quantum structure of reality and attack the points where the Devourer was anchored to normal space. Each strike sent feedback through the entity's form, causing it to writhe and shift as its hold on reality weakened. But they were only 6 humans against a creature that had consumed entire star systems. The battle was going badly when something unexpected happened. Across human space, every person with activated genes felt the call. Dr. A. Ra-shin, on the medical station orbiting Mars, suddenly found herself connected to the minds of humans fighting near Earth. Engineer Tae-min Choi, working on a research facility near Jupiter, felt his consciousness link with the battle group. Captain Seo-jun Kwon, commanding a patrol ship in the outer system, discovered that his enhanced awareness had expanded to cover impossible distances. Thousands of awakened humans across the solar system found their minds connecting, forming a network of consciousness that spanned light years. They were becoming what their ancestors had always been, not just individual predators, but a collective hunting intelligence that could coordinate across galactic distances. The Devourer, facing this unified human consciousness for the first time in 50,000 years, hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all the awakened humans needed. The collective will of an entire species focused on a single point in space, attacking the entity's anchor points simultaneously from a dozen different vectors. The Devourer screamed. The sound existed partially outside normal space and sensitive. Equipment across 3 star systems registered dimensional distortions. The entity's form began to collapse as its connection to reality was severed. But even as it died, the Devourer sent out a signal, a call to others of its kind that echoed across the galaxy. It's not over, Hyun-woo realized as the entity's form finally dissolved into nothingness. There are more of them. Much more. Over the following weeks, long-range sensors detected movement throughout the galaxy. Dozens of Devourer signatures were converging on human space, drawn by the signal their dead kin had sent. But something else was happening. Apex predators from hundreds of worlds were responding to an ancient call encoded in their genetic memory. The shadow stalkers of Verdania, the crystal spiders of Xerion Prime, the flame serpents of Perothia, species that had never cooperated. Before were working together, forming hunting packs that could track and harass the devourers across interstellar distances. The galaxy was remembering what it meant to have protectors. The final battle took place above Earth, where the largest devourer had emerged from the space between spaces. This entity was different from the others, older and more powerful. It began to unmake Earth's moon simply by focusing its attention on it, but it faced not just awakened humans, but every species they had ever protected. Alien ships arrived from across the galaxy, not to fight the devourer directly, but to provide support for the humans who could actually hurt it. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Hyunwoo found himself at the center of a consciousness network that included millions of awakened humans and the genetic memories of countless alien apex predators. He was no longer just one man fighting for survival, but the focused will of an entire galaxy that refused to be consumed. When the last devourer finally dissolved into quantum foam, the silence that followed was profound. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy was truly safe from the entities that existed to consume life itself. Hyunwoo floated in space above Earth, looking down at the blue world where his species had hidden for so long. Around him, other awakened humans were returning to their normal forms. The crisis passed, but the change is permanent. "So what happens now?" asked Yoonji through their mental link. "Now we remember," Hyunwoo replied. "We remember what we are and why we're here." The human race had spent millennia developing technology and civilization, but that had only been preparation. Their true purpose was to serve as the galaxy's guardians, the apex predators who stood watch against threats that came from the darkness between stars. Looking out at the alien ships that surrounded Earth, Hyunwoo saw the respect and recognition in their actions. Every species in the galaxy now understood what they had always sensed about humans. Behind the soft appearance and peaceful nature was something far more dangerous and protective. The apex predators had returned to their rightful place as guardians of the galaxy. And in the eyes of every human, both awakened and dormant, burned the patient, eternal gaze of something that had turned the entire universe into its hunting ground. The recognition that alien predators had always shown wasn't fear or submission.